Welcome. My name is Virgilio Viana. I'm the Director General of Amazonas Sustainable Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our first lecture of our course on sustainable development in tropical forest landscapes. The first series of lectures are going to be focused on the Brazilian Amazon. Other series of lectures are going to focus on other countries of the Amazon, as well as other biomes, including the Congo Basin in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central America. But today, we're going to focus on the Amazon, and I will start with a general view of the whole Amazon to put things in context. The first map I want to share with you is a map of the watershed of the Amazon River. And this map shows the extent of the basin, which includes 6 countries, which have rivers that all go into the Amazon River, the main Amazon River, which starts all the way in Peru, near the Pacific Ocean, in the El Mismi mountain, which is an old volcano, and it goes all the way to the mouth of the Amazon in the state of Pará and Amapá in Brazil. If we look, however, at the biome, which is our next slide, you're going to see a very different map. You're going to see a map which includes more countries, and is also slightly northwards. And the countries include Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Suriname, Guyana, and also part of France, which is called the French Guyana. As you can see, there are different geographical boundaries of the biome and the watershed. The watershed includes mountain ecosystem like the páramos in the Andes, which have no similarity with the usual image of a tropical rainforest, but they are part of the watershed. If we look at the size of the Amazon in relation to other countries, just to put in perspective, as you can see, many countries could fit in the Amazon. It's a huge area with over 5 million square kilometers. And at this point, I'd like to stress the first important message. First, we cannot talk about the Amazon as if it was a single region. It's not one region. There are many Amazonias. The realities of what you see in the Andean slopes of Peru, of Bolivia, Ecuador, and Colombia are very different from the lowlands, which are very different from areas which have a transition with the savannas, the Brazilian cerrados. So not only from a biophysical standpoint, but also from a sociological and economic standpoint, there are huge differences. So when we talk about sustainable development, one has to start by recognizing that the Amazon is an extremely large and extremely diverse region, and therefore the challenges for sustainable development are equally diverse and equally varied. In terms of the political boundaries, it's important to note that there are many parts of this territory which are called Amazonas. I'm speaking out of Manaus, which is the capital of the Brazilian state of Amazonas. In Colombia, we have also another state called Amazonas. And likewise, we do in other countries that have territories called Amazonas. In Brazil, we have a geographical boundary which was defined by a political decision that establishes the limit of what we call legal Amazonia, Amazonia legal in Portuguese. So when we refer to the Amazon, there are many geographical boundaries. And this is the second message. One has to be very specific about which Amazon boundaries you're referring to. And in English, it's particularly confusing because in English it's only Amazon. And it's not distinguished between Amazonas and Amazonia. And therefore one has to be very clear about which area from a geographical perspective one is referring to. Well, now I would like to move into the history of the Amazon. The Amazon has a very old geological history, which I'm not going to get into details here, but just so that you have a feel. The Andes are relatively recent, and prior to the uprising of the Andes high mountains, the water went westwards towards the Pacific. And after the rise of the Andes, then the water started to flow into the Atlantic Ocean. And if we jump from these ancient past to the last 10,000 years, that's the estimated time of arrival of what later was called Indians, Indian populations in the Amazon. The most accepted hypothesis is that these Indians came from North America through Alaska, coming from Asia. And then they went to North America, Central America, and eventually down to the lowlands of the Amazon. They developed quite sophisticated civilizations. Some are very well known, like the Incas near the Andes or around the Andes, Cusco being the capital of one of the main centers of the Inca Empire. At the time of the arrival of the Spaniards, they had a more sophisticated society in many respects than the European societies of the time. They had very sophisticated engineering, very sophisticated mathematics and astrology, astronomy, and a very complex and social structure. But then the Europeans arrived, and they were successful from a military standpoint in conquering these populations.